Hello and welcome back to another episode of Notion Bonsai, and today we're going to be styling the slanted bonsai forest. How's it going, everyone? I am super excited to share with you the styling of the slanted forest today, and we're here today again in my friend Attila's bonsai garden. Attila is over here. How's it going, Attila? Happy 2025.
Happy 2025. It's March. It's the equinox, actually. We got the equinox yesterday. We came back to this forest, which we put together last year, kind of exactly the same time, a year ago. Literally, I would just kept watering it, fertilized it a bit till the new roots will establish in the pot. The buds are just slightly started to come out. And this will be the perfect timing to do a first styling of this tree.
After we potted this tree last year also, I did share a little short video of showing how it leafed out, because a lot of you guys thought that this tree was probably dead after we repotted it because it just looked like sticks in a pot. So when it comes to styling this forest, there is a couple of ideas that Attila and I were going over sort of mentally as to how to approach this and give it a design that looks natural and true to the species. You want to create a tree that's sort of its older self, or replicating something that you would see in nature.
Not just forests, but like even individual trees. So like a lot of people stick to the design of, you got in any kind of species, the primary or even the secondary branches, everything is just like, you wire it like the branches coming like out and then downwards.
And that's sort of like the classic bonsai shape of the triangle, all the branches coming down.
These species, they don't have it. They are like deciduous coniferous trees. So the older ones, you see that they are like apical dominant trees, and most of them you see like kind of like flat tops, which kind of like looks like a bird's nest.
So even if you look at this one, all the branches that it put out over the last year, most of the growth and most of the thicker branches are at the apex. And now before we begin, the tools that we'll be using throughout this video today are twig cutters, branch cutters, wire cutters, and some gin pliers. So just looking at the lower branches of this part of the forest, you can see all the other trees mostly don't have any growth. This particular tree just happened to be quite strong growth on the bottom and the top, and these branches here are just not needed at all. So we're going to remove all these lower branches. Also, if you just look close at the tree, we can see some buds emerging. Just knock them off, that way you don't get any branches later in the year. And by also removing these early means we don't get any inverse taper on the trunk. And inverse taper is essentially just a swelling on the area of a trunk or branch, where as the branch grows it pulls the sap in that direction, and it can make it look sort of out of place. So just coming along, even cutting off some of that inverse taper can just keep your tree in check. Although these branches up here aren't in the bottom part of the tree, I'd still like to remove them because they're growing in towards the center of the planting. Even this one here, I'm going to keep this one to add a little bit of depth. It is somewhat of an eye poker branch growing straight towards the viewer. So in that case, I'm simply going to shorten it. And then when this grows and the foliage comes out later in the year, it will just give the tree a little bit of depth. So what we're doing here is primary branch selection, and essentially what we're going to do is set the branches in place as a first styling, and then whenever all the branches that we've set grow and thicken and develop over the next coming years, they will be in all the right places, all the places we want, in order to achieve that nice literati style. And just looking at this part here, it looks nice that there's so many branches in this area, and whenever it flushes out with growth, it will look quite nice and full. However, when you look at the branches, this one is quite close to this one, and this one's quite close to these ones over here, and they're all sort of congested. And if you sort of think ahead and imagine that these branches are all thicker in say 5 years time, then suddenly this congestion doesn't look so great. They're all so close together, you'll get lots of inverse taper. That's why we're going to thin out this area of the tree like this. And now I'm thinking, which one of these do I remove? If I remove this lower one, then these ones would be too close together. If I remove this top one, then these ones would be too close together. So the logical one to remove for me is the one that's in between them. So now whenever these thicken, there's lots of space in between to get a nice structure from. What do you think of this one, Attila? Remove this one too, because that's quite close to that one and that one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go for it.
Yeah, just thin it out,
And then even here at the apex, these two branches are growing from the one spot. If these are kept for any length of time, you'll get lots of inverse taper right here. You can actually see it's beginning to swell slightly. So for that reason, I'm going to remove this little lower one. and allow this top one to be wired later. And using these pruning decisions, we're going to do the same principle to the rest of the tree all over. It's fine. It's spaced these a bit. Maybe have that more.
Even that much, okay.
Or is that too much? Does it look nicer, or is that? To me, it just looks sort of.
This cannot be leave this way because actually this is hiding out the other trunk. So guys, if you see that these two apexes of these two trees are very close to each other, and like how I see it from the front, this trunk is basically blocking this one. So you want to move this a tiny bit to the left to use, and to doing so, I was going to use like 6mm aluminium wire, and we will see how much we need of that. Kind of there. Let's go with this, and we can only shorten off. So we're just going to cut the wire, but like you cut in like 45-degree angle, both of the sides, and then I'll try to wedge that in. But we will see if it's a correct length what we need. So now we are fine with this. You just kind of slightly get into the trunk, but it looks stable this way anyway.
And whenever you wire, you want to use what is known as the two-branch principle, if possible. This is essentially what Attila is doing here, wiring two branches together with one piece of wire. That way each branch is anchored to the other. So as Attila just coils the wire on the branch, as you can see, he's having like an equal distance between each coil at roughly a 45-degree angle. Doesn't always have to be this 45-degree, depending on the branch. You can make it tighter or looser, but you want an even space between the coils.
The other tip, guys, here, it's basically so when I'm applying the wire on, I don't really just do, you know, with my one hand. Literally what you want to do, it's basically you hold of the wire with one of your hand and then guiding with the other one all the way down. And also you try to make sure that you don't really put wire over the new developed buds, and we can be safe that they are not covered.
So them same techniques that we just showed you, the two-branch principle and anchoring the wire, we're now going to apply wire to every other branch throughout the entire forest, and that will allow us to shape every branch how we like it, put them into different positions, and we can really create sort of an overall structure with that sort of flatness on top of the forest that we're looking to achieve. So as you can see, we have now wired the entire forest. It took a little bit of time, but it was well worth it in the end. Now every one of these branches can be manipulated pretty easily. And the thing with the Bald Cypress or the Swamp Cypress, whenever you wire these branches, they are somewhat brittle. So whenever you are wiring them, I would just say be sort of cautious as you bend them. So for example, if I just take a branch here and I put the mic and clip it onto it like this, if I bend this branch, you can hear sort of makes a snapping noise. This isn't the branch actually snapping completely, but it is sort of the outer bark just tearing ever so gently. So whenever you do this, you want to just hear the snap, bend and snap, and just work your way along the branch, and don't put too much pressure to the point where it actually snaps the branch. As you can see here on the top, we're going for this sort of flat look on the trees. Of course, if you wish to, again, you can just put them down like this. Maybe I'll put it that way, just for now. We can even cut this shorter later if we want to. This one can come out this way. I'm going to bring it up and then down. That way there's movement in the branch, so it's not just, you know, straight out. You want to give it a nice flow. So imagine if it grew, it came up to reach the sun, and then for whatever reason, it bent down. Maybe there was weight on the branch. Now looking at this top branch, it's a little bit of a challenge, and it might be a little bit overwhelming if you're a beginner as to how you deal with this, because it's quite thick, and if we bend this over, it might snap. Thinking, what do you think, Attila? First, we could bend it over, or we could let it grow as the leader and then hope for side branches that can become flat. You cut it here, it's another option.
As the whole tree higher than it is, but for me, I would kind of like stop in here as the top. And because of the flow, so it's coming out on the left side as where you put everything in here. When you bend it as how Adam did, usually what I do is basically put your thumb on the wire. So basically you're not bending the branch itself, you're bending the wire. That's why you're really careful, because it could be just really snap on us. But if you maneuver it with the wire, it's much more safer than if you would just, you know, hold a bit more flatter as much as I can. If I'm bending, like I'm just bending it towards to me, which is like just kind of like one-dimensional move, but then you can just go out a bit with it. Yes, just more towards the viewer. So you will have like up, and then you have like more like three-dimensional movements.
Alright, so now we have done all the rough shaping, and as you can see, look at this forest. It immediately looks so much better, although it's sort of in chaos at the moment because there's lots of crossing branches. All the growth that was originally just sort of growing straight up has now been nice and sort of compactified down. We've made it more horizontal in growth, as you can see, just moving all the branches outward. What do you think, Attila?
It's getting there. It's getting there. It's, as you said, looks a bit more chaos, but before we wanted to, you know, cut any branches, we were like, let's just, you know, wire out everything and then style it to the rough, kind of like a rough first styling. And then now as we see the silhouette, we can, you know, be a better judges, like, do we want to keep this branch like till here? We're going to till here. So the next step, what we are going to do now, it's basically coming back, because it's really like a rough shape now, and it looks like, as you said, it's a bit more chaotic. So let's give like a bit of system into this chaos. So we're going to come back and like prune everything back to the proportion what you will see, because this is...
You have sort of each tree individual, negative space between the trees.
Yeah, exactly. Branches. And as you said, we will go with like pruning the forest as a forest, but in the same time as every single individual tree will have, you know, different approaches of, okay, like if that will be this length, what that will add to the whole composition. So you prune a single tree, but then you prune it in the same time as the whole.
Okay, so now we've got the forest on the table. That way we can look at it in eyeline. You want to look at it as it is going to be seen by everyone else, and that's how you style around. And there you guys have it. On that, I'm going to end off this video right here. Also remember to check out Attila's channel. It is at @FangornBonsai, and I'll leave a link in the description of this video. Remember to leave a like on this video, as it really helps out the channel a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And let us know down in the comments what you thought of this video. Perhaps there's something you would have done differently with the slanted forest. We're always open to new and different ideas in bonsai. If you would like to support me and the things that I do on this channel, hit the thanks button down below. Or if you would like to become a channel member, hit the join button. That way you will get early access to new videos before they go out to everyone else, and you will get access to membership posts. But on that, thank you so very much for watching.